That's ominous. Recording in progress. No, just so I know a handful of folks in this call. My name's Ryan. I'm a Army guy. Jumped out of planes back in the, I don't know, after 9/11. Um, I'm a member of this group. I attend not frequently because thank you to Alan Hill, I had a landing um, several months ago. But but no, I am a 15-year, since I left the military, 15-year project manager. I'm not a PMP, but I am a Scrum certified project manager. Like I said, 15 years. I've been doing it on and off. A member of Project Management Institute, PMI of Minnesota. I just wanted to, my involvement in this group has been limited. I'm an ambassador for Warriors Next Adventure. I'm a chaplain for my local American Legion. I'm a navigator for Project Got Your Back. But I made a point to drop in tonight because as a 15-year project manager, as a veteran, I had a chance to meet Melissa about a year ago, and I just wanted to give her an endorsement and vouch for her credibility. Um, in my experience, there's three factors here. One, she's a fantastic advocate for veterans, supporter of veterans. So I would encourage you to respect your credibility in that regard. Second of all, she's incredibly highly regarded in the project management community. She's very involved with Project Management Institute of Minnesota. So she's very savvy in the subject matter. And then third of all, she's just a great human being and a fantastic friend. So I just want to introduce her with that and kind of, if anything, kind of give that credibility as a vet, as a project manager, to say, like, I'm eager to hear what she has to say. And with that, I will shut up.
Wow, thank you. I want to cry. That's amazing. No, you're fantastic. It's been so great to get to know you and to see your progress and see all the things you've been involved in over the last year. I do stalk you a little bit on LinkedIn to kind of like, oh wow, he's doing this now. So it's really fun to celebrate each other's successes. And with groups like this and other groups, you get to know people and you get to do that with each other. And that's really, really special. Really special. So I'm going to share my screen and I want to ask a couple of questions before we get started because I'm not going to talk about things that you already all know. Let's see here. Are you all able to see my screen? Zoom is super fun and then it doesn't really show me everybody's.
Yes, I see.
Yes, we can see.
To rearrange everything. Okay, perfect. Good. Okay, so first of all, how many of you are in project management currently? Like you've done it for a long time or you're getting into it, that's kind of your realm.
So I've been a PMP since 2007.
Okay,
and
great.
I spent most of my life working in aerospace and defense, which is all program driven. So I've been intimately involved in project management, program management for a good part of my career.
That's great. How many of you are looking to maybe get into project management or transition from more of a military version of project management into a more corporate version of project management? You're kind of at the beginning of that transition. Is there anybody here like that?
Yeah, I would probably put myself in that category of, I'm a military spouse. I've been moving with my active duty husband for the last 25 years. He's preparing to retire and I just got my PMP about a year ago. I worked in education. Thank you. I worked in education for about a decade and then I've done a couple other things since then, chief of staff, and I did a project management for the city of San Diego, but they just had a bunch of layoffs. So I'm kind of in transition right now.
Okay, great. So it sounds like I'm talking to a lot of people who kind of have the gist of things already. So we will skip over some of that. I'll touch on it briefly, but we'll mostly skip over some of that. And we'll have some conversation instead, which will be fantastic. All right. So first of all, I'd like to introduce myself, but mostly Terry, because I've already had an introduction, talk about our role with project management, the PMI group and PMI Minnesota. We'll talk about how to find a professional association briefly, the cons of joining one, because I like getting that out of the way right away. There are some downsides, so we'll talk about that really quickly, and then we'll talk about what it actually looks like to start networking within these groups. The good, the bad, the weird, and what you'll actually see when you go into some of these groups, and talk about the benefits. And then Terry's going to really jump into a lot of detail about PMI Minnesota. We got a lot of reading here, but basically I'm Melissa and I've got 20 plus years of project management. Terry is 30-year military veteran. He's got IT, software, cybersecurity, agile, a lot of really good experience in that neck of the woods. And that can be a little bit different than some of the more operational things. And so as you have questions, especially towards the end, we might divide up those answers a little bit more. So finding a professional association, I'd like to start with, first of all, how many of you are part of a professional association? You are. Which ones are you part of?
PMI.
PMI.
Same
It's a
here,
good one.
Minnesota chapter.
You are part of the Minnesota chapter. That's great. Brad, did you see your hand?
PMI as well as Scrum Alliance.
Oh, that's a good one. Scrum Alliance is good. You'll notice that a lot of these certifications like Agile, Scrum, PMP, PMI, even obviously outside of project management, will have different associations. So that's always a good way to look for that. And you guys are not newbies in all of this, so this is stuff you've probably already heard before. But one of the things that I've found is really helpful for me is to talk to people as I'm networking and find a creative way to ask about their professional associations. So instead of saying, hey, what groups do you belong to? I'll say something like, so how do you stay relevant in your field? Or, you know, I've heard that this field is really changing. AI has had a huge impact. Who do you talk with about this? Where are you learning about this stuff? Do you have classes that you go to? What are you? And I start picking people's brains like that. They love to talk about what they're doing, what they're interested in, and how they're learning. And it's just a really great way to get some information that you may not get if you say the word association. Now, what associations do you belong to? And I find it a fascinating topic, and it takes your conversations from networking into some really interesting areas specific to your field, which can be really interesting, especially like, let's say you're going to the golf tournament, you've got people on your team and you're looking for things to talk about industry-wise. That can be a really great avenue to take to go down some interesting rabbit holes. So you've already talked about what you've joined. For those of you who haven't joined project management, are there other associations that you've joined or you've considered joining? Perhaps IT related? Is that something that you really talk about on these Tuesdays?
So in my experience, Melissa, the project management fields, PMI, Scrum, things like that, those are kind of the primary, professional field associations. But what I've done recently is kind of the industry associations. So whatever kind of industry your company's in, getting some exposure and involvement in some of those has been, at least in my experience, beneficial.
Can you tell us about one of them? I'd love to hear.
I'm in class action lawsuit industry. So it's kind of that legal administrative field. Terribly boring, but class action administration, there's like two professional associations
super
for it.
interesting.
Yeah. Bunch of lawyers arguing with each other, and you're just trying to manage a couple of lawyers as stakeholders. Yeah, terribly fun.
Yeah, that's great. Anybody else? Something more specific or more general? Let's get some ideas here. Is there one that you haven't joined? Because let's talk about the cons here. Costs can be really expensive. That can be a big deterrent for people. It takes some time, but some of these are designed for companies to sponsor their employees. Some of the higher level IT groups, some of the network conferences, some of the, let's see, I just heard of one a couple weeks ago and they're like, oh, it's only a couple grand. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So that can be prohibitive. The other thing that I found that's really interesting to me is that when I went to a lot of these things, I thought that I would find a lot of upper level management folks, and I didn't. I have not found in some of these groups having busy upper level management people there. So I find a lot of folks that are like you in transition. They're maybe moving into the field. They might be trying to break into project management from a different group. I find a lot of people that are maybe first, second, third level. But when you start getting into the director and VP level, a lot of those folks are really busy. They feel that this is my experience. And so if you've seen something different, I want to hear about it. But it seems like they really feel like their time is best spent moving their career forward at their job, managing their employees, reaching their deliverables. If they're going to spend extra time, they're going to do that there. And only a few of them really feel like they want to grow their career. They need to grow their career outside of that at the moment until they're in transition or they want to make a change. Or some folks just really do have a heart to give back. And that's really fun. But I was very surprised to find in some of these groups that the upper level management, and I've been part of the Turnaround Association and several other groups as well. And I've kind of found the same thing in some of those as well. So that was really interesting to me. But what you will find, one of the things that I found that's the most interesting to me is people who do have a heart to give back. People who are interested in mentoring. I am the manager of the mentorship program at PMI, the local chapter, the Minnesota chapter. So we get people who do say, I want to mentor. I want to walk alongside somebody, or I only have time for a conversation, but I would love to talk to somebody. So I'll talk to people and say, you want to do Agile? You don't know anything about Agile. I know somebody who knows about Agile and connect people. And you'll find a lot of those kinds of people at these events, which is really fantastic. The other thing that these groups often will do in Minnesota, PMI Minnesota is really, really good at this, is finding low cost ways for you to do continuing education, to learn about what's coming next in the field, to have speakers brought in and that sort of thing. And that can be really helpful. And it's just a nice, fun way to geek out. So when it comes to networking, obviously no presentation would be complete without a benefits slide. But when you're in transition, what I found for people is that learning the lingo is really important. Putting that lingo in your resume is really important. So for those of you who have a PMP, you know that there's a whole bunch of language. So what is project management? For those of you who don't have a PMP, it's managing time, managing resources, communicating. Have any of you not done that in your jobs before? I think we all have. So when you're making that transition from another type of a career to project management proper, corporate, using some of those buzzwords can be really helpful. It can help you auto match in searches. It can help them really see that even though you may not have held that specific title before, you understand the concepts. So learning that lingo is one of the things that you really get to do when you network in these groups and you do some of the educational content, especially with PMI Minnesota. We're always talking about how do you use the tools? How do we talk about the tools? And so that can be really helpful. Changes and trends in the industry. AI has been the huge topic. Again, I don't know, I haven't been on your previous calls, but it seems like everybody's offering some sort of AI, free or paid, for talking about how that's going to change the industry. But there are other disruptors as well, and there are other leadership topics, and it's really nice to be ahead of that and have a really good understanding of how that's going to change your job and your company, your company's goals when you go into a new company, how that industry is going to change, how that field of practice is going to change and is changing. And that's something you can really understand. And then getting the inside scoop. I do this probably more than I should, but I'm always very interested in how their actual job is and what it's really like to work for that company. And people are usually very interested in talking about it, but I don't typically say, hey, do you hate your job? I'll say, so how was your week this week? Is it rough? Oh, rough week. Oh, tell me all about it. So what is it usually like that? Is that normal for you guys? And it also gets people talking, you get to know people, and just gives you a way to not only get to know them, but do some recon too, which is really nice.
Say, Melissa, can I ask you a question on that note?
Please.
So in my limited experience, project management as a profession, there's a very kind of a clear expectation and vision of what we see our role as. But every company I've been to has wildly different expectations of what the company expects and thinks project managers do. Is that a similar experience that you have speaking to a lot of people like this and kind of getting that scope of project management and what the lived experience is at different companies?
Mm-hmm. Very much. Yeah, it's fascinating. I find it absolutely fascinating. That's a great question. Good comment. Yeah, but whether it's a big company or a little company, whether it's, a lot of times we talk about size, but really maturity of the company is a huge part of that. You can have a larger company that still is not very mature in their processes. So that maturity, I think, is probably what mostly defines what our roles look like within that company. And so that's something you can't really get a feel for until you've gotten some intel. But it is interesting. And that's a common thing that we get from people too, who come into the mentorship program. How do I navigate this? This is not what I did last time. What is it? How do I navigate this now? Yeah, Rob.
So just if I can interject,
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be a program manager or a project manager to get benefit from being a PMP.
Mm-hmm.
In point of fact, I ran the quality function for major programs at General Dynamics in quality. And the comment my manager made when she suggested I get my PMP is that someone has to watch the program managers. So you don't have to just be in the program office or the project office to get significant benefit from being a part of PMI and having your PMP.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Really, what PMI used to be, this follow the rules, make all of these long charts, A point, B point, 2.3, then A point 2.23. But nobody uses that. It's completely irrelevant, and they finally got the hint. So now they've moved their training and their testing to more real world situations where they say, here's a bunch of tools for you to use. These are different kinds of situations you can use these tools in, and here's how to modify these tools based on what you experience. And that really is where the way the conversation has gone in project management, and it's continuing that way quickly. It is more so a toolbox than anything else. Alan, I see a hand.
Nope, just applauding.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I do want to mention too that contributing at these events can be done by anybody. I have seen some huge contributions from people who have never been a project manager before coming into project management. There are all kinds of ways that you can help out. Let's say you have your PMP, but you are maybe still new in the field. There are kids who are taking their tests or studying for their tests that really would love to talk to you about your experience with the test, or vice versa. Maybe you've come out of construction and somebody just got a job in construction and they want to talk about that industry. No matter what your experience is, you can bring value wherever you're at. So I highly recommend that if it's something that you're interested in, that you get involved and you volunteer. And I got to tell you, there is nothing better than working on a project with a bunch of project managers from different industries. You learn so much about different ways of people doing things, and they're so organized and they're so on top of things. It's so much fun. It's like the opposite of stressful to volunteer with PMI Minnesota, let me tell you. It's great. So
Rebecca had her hand up.
Okay, so I am going to, in a minute, not right this second, transfer over to Ryan. I know we don't have a huge long time to talk, but I would want to answer questions too and go down whatever rabbit hole is helpful for you to go down. Rebecca, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I do. Hi, Melissa. I do have a question about the PMP test. it may be different depending on who's proctoring the test or who's sponsoring it. I'm not sure how that works because I've never worked in project management before. I have no idea. But do you know if whoever is doing the test or providing the test, proctoring it, whatever you want to call it, do they offer accommodations for people with disabilities, like dyslexia, for example?
I believe they do.
Okay,
I don't know the outline of that. I don't have that in my head, but from what I understand, they do.
they do. Okay, very good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Melissa, and Rebecca, my understanding, and again, I'm about maybe 6 months, 9 months behind the curve.
Mhm.
They offer an unlimited testing time in those kinds of instances.
Okay, very
But
good.
but
Thank
again, I may be outdated on the information, so please don't quote me.
Okay, thank you.
That's great.
Good question, Rebecca.
Thanks, Terry.
So the focus of this talk was a little bit more on the networking side and project, PMI Minnesota. But if you've got more specific project management career type questions or industry questions, Terry and I would love to answer those too.
I will add this is Terry, is on my side of the house. I've done several years in military, done projects, and like I tell a lot of military members, you not realize it, but you've already a project manager. Have you tried to motivate troops or something to do something to get something done? You are a project manager. Did you coordinate with something with, a general and try to get things done and push it? You are a project manager. Pretty much anything you do is probably as a project manager. Biggest thing is like Melissa mentioned, you motivate people to get a job done and you check on them. Hey, what's the status of it? How are you doing? And then talk to your general what and say, hey, yes, this is where we're at. This is my roadblock. This is what I need. This is the resources. I'll hand that to you and give it to you. So basically, you're a middleman. You are function. You are operate. You make sure that task or that chore. If you've done deployments, if you've done training missions, ran that. You're a project manager. And what I'm trying to hint at is that when I was getting ready to leave the military, I didn't know I qualified for the PMI or PMP certification until I met with a mentor and he motivated me and told me, you know what, you've got everything, Terry. Help me out, fill all the paperwork and everything else. I've been a PMP for almost like 5, 6 years now, enjoying it. And I've got other certificates in other areas. And I like to promote also too is like what you did, Ryan, diversify yourself in areas. Like I have the, um, what is it, Lean Six Sigma. I've done the other certifications, Scrum Master and all that. Companies like to know that you have that option. So if they do have, hey, we need this thing pushed through, how I'm going to do it. Well, you can say, hey, I can use Lean Six Sigma, or I can use, uh, different type of projects that you're aware of, and different tools in your toolbox of how to function and how to do it. So that's the biggest thing. And with the military, they will help you pay for it. And in the flyer that I sent in there, if you go to my website, PMI Minnesota, I tell you some of the military websites where you can go to and get that access. And email me, and I'll help you walk you through the whole thing because I've been down that path already. So that's my 2 second spill. I wanted to get it out, spread it. So hey, as people say, hey, give back. And that's what my goal is here for you guys.
That's perfect.
Any questions, feel free to ask.
Can I piggyback on that, Terry, a little bit? So I was an NCO. I'm gonna be a little bit profane here for a second and say, as an NCO, my mantra was get shit done. I won't swear again, but as a project manager, that's my same mantra: get things done. So to Terry's point, if you're looking at project management, you've been in the military, that's what we do. We make sure that things get done. So if you're an officer, yes, I don't know, I have my things with officers as an enlisted guy, but if you're an NCO, absolutely, it's probably right up your alley. And then if I can, so for Melissa and maybe Terry, my question is, and this may be going a little specific into the project management domain, but the big kind of debate discussion is agile versus traditional project management, kind of the agile versus waterfall approach. So what would your recommendations be on, if I'm somebody looking at project management or I'm a new project manager, the PMP, roughly we're talking $2,000 for the test and the certification. We're talking, I don't know, 3 years experience. We're talking 6 months of sitting and practicing for the test. Big investment. On the other hand, you've got the agile route, which is maybe a little bit lesser on the certifications and kind of a different methodology. Which way do you see PMI going, given the PMP versus maybe the ACP approach? And if you could speak to those, I'd be very interested.
Yeah. Yeah, PMI is definitely trying to catch up with the trends. Right now, the exam is about half agile and half traditional, and they definitely talk about hybrid a lot. A lot of companies that I've been in use a hybrid approach in IT, software development, those types of things. They're using a lot more agile. It's not true agile, but it's pretty cool. It's more agile. And then in some of the operations, they're still using waterfall. So depending on the department, depending on the project, depending on what they need to get done, we're transitioning. I, as a consultant, transitioning in and out of agile a lot. So I'm using both, and the project management exam and teaching materials are going towards that. Terry's got more experience in more traditional agile, I think, than I do. Do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I'll add on it is first thing you need to ask yourself, what area of project management or field you want into? There's IT, there's things, hey, I just want to work in construction. Oh, hey, I want to work in software. You got to first find that department where you're good at it, where you have some experience in. And then what type of tools do they use? Do they use waterfall? Waterfall, just for people that are on, or basically is, the end result of what it is, and you could backfill, okay, this is how it is. Hey, I already know how the house is going to look. All right, let me fill it out. Compared to software, is every week or 2 weeks, that software completely changes. So you have to be agile and adapt to it and change with it going. And that's what I would do, is I'd start there. PMP is actually a good thing, because I want to promote that, is that majority of the jobs, and a lot of jobs like the current job I have right now, one of the requirements is they wanted you to have a PMP certification before they hire you on. And that's what set me ahead of everybody else. I'm like, everybody else probably could have maybe 10 years, 15 years of project management experience, but me having my PMP certification, I got it for the reason is they look at, hey, you did the willingness and the effort to go get a certification to prove that you are, instead of just sitting there, no, I'm too good, I don't need to get a certification. And I'm a caveat off of Ryan. Ryan, through the military, we will help you pay for that test, that 35 hours you need done, pay for the test, and help you study. And also PMI has a bunch of places like Navigator and all that that'll help you study for it. And I'll probably even help you study through it. So basically, all I need from you is, if you plan on getting a PMP, is your time and your willingness and the desire to get that PMP, or your Scrum Master or anything else, and I'll help you guide it. So that's my caveat off of Melissa.
That's great. I think too, now that one of the things you said sparked this, because we're living in a more and more constantly changing environment where things are less predictable, seems like every day, the desire to bring visibility to our projects and bring visibility to what's coming ahead budget wise, schedule everything, there's just so many variables, and it seems like every day there's more. The tools that we learn in agile can be hijacked to help Kanban boards, things like that, where you're not actually doing agile in a waterfall environment, but you're using some of those tools for reporting and to bring visibility to your projects and to help your projects, just help communicate, I guess, what that, craziness might look like, for lack of a better word. But those tools can be really helpful too. That's part of your toolbox as well.
Anybody else got any questions?
Okay, so PMI Minnesota, this has been up forever. I'm not going to read it, but the nice thing about the events is, even though they do charge for the events, the goal is break even. So they're around $30 an event with dinner and a speaker and everything. So they do try to keep it, once you're in, They try to keep it pretty affordable. This is Terry's flyer. Would you like to speak to this, Terry, and just kind of go over a couple of your main points?
Yeah, this flyer here, I went ahead and I put it in the chat, talking about just hits the highlights down there. If you notice 1, 2, 3, 4 on my website, I give you locations where you can go get different things. Like I notice people here, pathways and all this Syracuse. I've got that where it is in the site. I need to update some things on there, but you can go through there. Air Force cool, Army cool. If you're a reserve veteran, what the military will help you pay for it. Also, too, is what we have as an option. If you join PMI Minnesota will pay for your first year of fees, which is around the $35, for you to help out any military member on that. Work through me and I'll help you get that set up. But the biggest thing is on this is the government will pay you to take this test. All you got to do is a time. And there's a process where you got to meet the eligibility. You got to fill out some paperwork. Basically, it sits there and says, hey, prove to me that you did PMI. So you say, hey, I did this project. I helped on a deployment. I did this and this. Hey, I helped organize this fund run or something in that area for the military. You just do a bunch of things like that, and I'll help you put it together. You go take your test, and once you take the test, then you come in and join PMP or PMI, and then we help you out, expand your things a little bit further. I want to put in there money too, because sometimes money speaks to people, but it all depends on your background too, of what your experience is. So in that area, I just visit people to visit the website and have any questions. There's my PMI link on there. Shoot me an email, and I will reach out to you and help you out through your travels. Or if you know of a veteran, spouse, or a retired military, in all those we will help.
And I just want to reiterate, Terry is an awesome resource. He talks about you got to fill out the papers and you got to do this and he's an awesome resource. So please don't be hindered. Reach out to Terry. He's great. He's great with that. Does PMI offer a military discount? This is straight from their website. The important thing to remember is what Terry just said, that you do get the registration to PMI Minnesota your first year for free. And I will be sending out the links to that information. I'll put it in the chat so you can go look at it if you're interested on your own time. Terry, do you want to talk about this?
I can. How about I'll piggyback off of that? Maybe I'll add some few things onto it. How's that?
Perfect. Yeah, our next in-person event is in September. We do try to have an in-person event every month. There are some months that we take off. There are also online events. There are seminars on the weekends sometimes. They've got all kinds of ways that you can get involved. You don't necessarily have to get in your car and drive somewhere, but the in-person networking events, they try to do one a month. This next one is actually Veterans in Transition, and it's a panel discussion along with dinner, networking, and it'll be a great opportunity to get to know people. From what I understand, you do have to be a member in order to join, and the fee is $32 just for that. It's that break-even cost. So if you're interested, it's a lot of fun.
And if you want to be a member, you could be a member. What sometimes is for PMI, to take your PMI test, you have to be a member first of PMI before you can take the test. So if you're kind of like on the fence or something in that area, you can just be a PMI member. I think you have to be a PMI Minnesota member also to attend this. Am I correct on that, Melissa?
Yeah, you have to log in order to register. So I tried to register without logging in and it wouldn't let me. So.
Oh, okay. All righty.
So they do have that. But it should be a really fun time. And then these are 3 links to save, and I'll put these in the chat. So we've got projectmanagement.com. This has got fantastic free resources, articles, webinars. There's the links to their podcast called, I think it's called Projectify, something really unique. But really, really great resources. I highly recommend going on there and clicking around. PMI-Minnesota.org is our website. And then the PMI military resources with all of the information, it goes really into depth about what types of benefits from the military will pay for what kinds of things. And that's a little over my head, but it goes really in depth on that page. So I will send that to you.
Can I just give a plug for projectmanagement.com?
Yeah.
So I tend to work at small firms since 2020. So the last 4 years I've become focusing the niche on small firms. I can go to projectmanagement.com and find a template for any artifact you could
Really?
imagine, and suddenly you look like a stud with your bosses. And what you really did, you just went to projectmanagement.com and looked up a Gantt chart or a risk register or something like that. And there's tons of great templates out there.
And it's all free.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's
Cool.
great. All right. Well, that is enough of my big old PowerPoint here. I'd love to answer more questions if you've got them.